Hello and welcome to the Intelligent Gentleman Podcast. I am your host, Milt Walker, and welcome back. Keeping true to form, I'm just excited to be able to bring these thoughts and perspectives to you all utilizing this podcast platform, and I'm grateful for those who listen, who support, and who continuously show their support. I've had several people reach out lately, tell me how much it has impacted them, and it means so much to hear that, because truly and honestly, I'm not doing it for any other reason. I'm only doing it to share my thoughts and views, and hopeful that it would impact someone in a positive way and help them along their journey. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and during that conversation, a couple of things kept coming up in my mind as we were discussing different topics. And so that thing that kept coming up was the fact that we're all on our own spiritual journey, right? And I know you guys have heard me say this. I know that a lot of you may even know this, but I just wanted to explain a little bit more about that, right? Because a lot of times we can get caught up in the way that other people show up in our spiritual journey, right? But a big part of making sure that you keep the proper perspective in this is for you to make sure that when you are sharing your journey with someone, whether it be verbally or whether you decided to be partners in a relationship of some kind, whether it's friendship or deeper intimate relationships, that you understand this, okay? And this goes back to some of the other podcasts that I've said, so I'm not going to go into depth about too much of the other points that go along with this. I encourage you to go back and listen. But, being whole, being you yourself, you are whole. And so a lot of times we attach certain thoughts to others, but it comes from a place or a perspective of not understanding that you are whole, right? Which creates a lot of friction. I like to call it friction. I don't really like to look at it in terms of negative and positive, in the sense that, that it's good or bad, but more so because they're your emotions, right? But what it is it is the fact that it's coming from a place of an older perspective, right? Or it may be your current perspective, and this may help you catalyze the thought of knowing the difference, right? So with that being said, when you are interacting with other people on your journey, right, always remember that their journey is happening at the same time, right? Their journey is happening at the same time. So when we look at things, and I'll speak about myself, when I talk to someone and I'm having a conversation, it's within my nature to try to help them solve a problem. Like if they express some sort of problem, it's in my nature to try to give them some sort of solution to that, or some type of comfort of knowing that there is a solution, I've recently, kind of tempered that in the sense that, I don't do it as often as I used to, because of the simple fact that I just wait for someone to ask me what my thoughts are a lot of times, right? And so, and I'm used to that. I'm used to a lot of people asking me what my thoughts are. But I do realize sometimes that people aren't ready to hear what you have to say, or, they're not looking for a solution at that moment, but just understand the nature of a problem, right? The nature of a problem is to find a solution. It is not to sit in the problem. That causes a lot of other issues in your psychological, mental makeup, right? When you just sit in a problem, right? So I think sometimes when we're talking about this and we're saying to ourselves, okay, well, I'm not really looking for a solution, I think it's important for us to also add to that you may not be looking for a solution right now, right? But you should be looking for a solution, right? Even if the solution is just to completely ignore it, right? The solution can look like a lot of different things, but it's still a solution. It's still how you choose to solve that particular issue, right? And a great example of that is, someone making mean comments about you, or not, or throwing shade at you, or whatever the case may be. Now, we're not talking about your perceived notion of someone doing that. We're talking about somebody actually doing it, okay? So if somebody's actually doing that to you, right, then you can still choose to ignore it. You have that power. And again, going back to this conversation I was having with a friend of mine, part of that conversation, again, and it kept coming up over and over and over again, was that how do we approach life? How do we approach life, right? How do we go from one phase into the next? And a big part of that is understanding the phase that you are in, right? So when you have come to terms with where you are, right, it's not to just be there. It's not to say, okay, well, this is where I am. This is who I, that whole saying, well, this is who I am, and, people just got to deal with. No. Everything changes. The nature of life is to change, right? It's to always change. So in order for you to truly be in alignment with that, you have to be willing to change, right? Now, does that always mean that you're going to let something go? Not necessarily. It just may be you choosing a different way of expressing it, right? Or so on and so forth. I don't want to get too caught up into that, but just suffice it to say that if with thought you can think about this and just realize that when you understand where you are, it's relational. So it's in relation to where you were and where you're going. It's not just to absolutely say this is where I am, right? Because once you do that, you have effectively, and this was the conversation that we were having, you have effectively stopped your growth as a human being, as a spiritual being, as, whatever title and role you play in life, you have stopped your growth. So you can, but if you do, then realize that you're putting self-limiting thoughts into your existence, into your experience of life, right? Which after a while, just like any other thing that becomes a habit, and after that becomes behavior, you may completely forget, right? You may not forget in the sense that you don't know, but forget in the sense that it becomes so comfortable to you to remain there that some people put it, the way that some people explain it is, they say that you're sleeping, right? You're sleeping on yourself, right? And that's what that is. Like when you get to that point and you're sleeping on yourself and you're not really utilizing the things that you have within you, and cultivating it and pushing it to the next level, not just using it, but pushing it to the next level. Like, okay, I know I can do this, but what more can I do, right? And I know it's hard sometimes because we love to place limits on ourselves. We love to, because it keeps us from taking accountability and responsibility, right? So because we place a little, oh, well, that's just me, I'm just human, right? So, that effectively allows you to stay in that place where you felt the need to say that, right? And so that you can feel comfortable about being there. Now, again, this is not to say that you should feel bad about it. We're not bringing that into the experience either. It's not about you feeling bad about anything. It's not about you beating yourself up either. It's about keeping the proper perspective so that when the opportunity for growth presents itself, because it will, you can be in the right mindset to accept it and to move on to the next level. Okay? That's what it's about. Because otherwise, if you're in the mindset that, oh, I'm comfortable where I am, I'm okay with it, whatever the case may be, then when that opportunity presents itself, you will sit on that and you will just be like, okay, well, whatever. And I'm, again, my understanding is this, that all things are possible. And so because all things are possible, it doesn't necessarily, I don't ascribe to the whole, oh, you missed your once in a lifetime chance, right? I believe things can happen in an infinite multitude of ways, that it doesn't have to happen one way. And it surely doesn't have to happen in the way that I feel like it has to happen, right? So if I understand that and I truly believe that all things are possible, then I don't lose hope. For one, right? That's on the very base level. I don't lose hope. I'm not going to completely count anybody out, and I'm not going to completely count myself out, ever, But what I am going to do is I'm going to start searching for the solution. You see? So once I start searching for that solution, the solution typically presents itself. And the only reason why I say typically is because I don't want to put it in the absolute category, because if it doesn't happen in a certain time frame, people tend to not get that, right? So they will automatically not. They would think that it's untrue because it's just not happening in the time frame that they want it to happen. But the solution will always present itself. So as long as you're open to it, though, and let's break that down for a second. The reason why you have to be open to the solution presenting itself to you is because if you are not open to it, then you are effectively blocking it. You are basically saying that you don't want it. You don't want a solution. So again, that's one of the dangers of staying in the mindset of the problem and not being open to the solution. Whatever it is, and I like to stay in that place when I'm saying these things, because what I speak of is very general, because it's a principle. And so that helps keep it from being capped, keep it from being limited. People always say, oh, well, you being so, well, I won't say you always say that because I don't really hear it that often myself. But people might want to say, oh, you're being too general, you're not being specific enough, right? But it's because a lot of times when someone says that, it's because they want you to solve the problem for them, right? They want you to be specific because they want you to solve the problem for them. But that's not always the answer. The answer is not always for someone else to swoop in and solve the problem for you. The answer sometimes is for you to learn something and solve the problem yourself, right? And again, I don't want to cap the way that you think, so I'm gonna say this. That could be for a lot of different reasons, but one evident reason that would be true for anyone would be it's for your self-development, right? It helps develop you and your mental prowess and your mental fortitude, your ability to take on problems, right? And not have the problems take you. You know what I mean? So that's huge. That in itself is huge, right? It goes back to that old saying of, you never know if you can go through something until you go through it, right? And I switched that a little bit because I don't necessarily feel like you have to go through it, but what I will say is that you never know how strong you are until you allow yourself to be strong, and that can be discipline, right? So that can be in anything from working out. One of the major things that I've been through in my experience was I've pushed the limits of my capabilities several times in my life, and I found in every case, I know some people are going to be like, I'm interested, I want to know about this. And I found in every case that those limits can be broken, And it's so interesting to me and that's what brought me into the mindset of knowing that we limit ourselves a lot. We do. We just do. And we do it through just dealing with other people because they feel limited in something, and you hear this all the time, rappers talk about it, people just in general talk about it where, people didn't believe in them and if they would have not believed in themselves, they never would have accomplished what they accomplished, right? You always hear that. That's always a part of someone, I won't say always, but it's a part of a lot of people's success stories, is the fact that even though someone or something placed some type of limiting belief on them, they did not ascribe to that and they pushed through that and they became successful in whatever it was that they were doing, even if it was just being successful in mastering themselves. And I said even if it's only, right? But that's actually the highest thing that you can do, because everything else is going to flow from that. Once you have done that, and when I say mastering, I'm not talking about you got all the keys. I'm talking about the fact that you have reached a certain level to where you understand something. That's what I mean by mastery, right? Because what happens at that point is now you can move to learning something else, and there's always something else to learn. So, quote unquote, mastery doesn't actually exist, right? Because if you were able to master something to the point of not needing to grow at all in it ever again, well, that's a different podcast. I won't get into that today. But just suffice it to say that there would be no purpose at that point, right? So, not a purpose in the sense of what we understand purpose to be. So, being that there's always a higher level you can go, right? Being that there's always a higher level that you can go, you should always strive to grow. In other words, don't limit yourself. Don't ever limit yourself. And it's okay to take a break. It's okay to step back from the pursuit of whatever it is and take a break, take a breather, take some time to be present in the present moment. That's okay. But we need to put it in perspective. We need to make sure that we're not saying it's okay to not grow. We don't want to say it's okay to not grow. But it is okay to take a break. It's okay to sit back and reflect. It's okay to do something that you enjoy and just, put it on the back burner for right now. You're not in a race. You're not in a competition with anybody. And if you are, then that's probably part of your problem. Because if you're relating your journey with someone else's journey, then that shows that you don't understand the nature of that journey. Your journey is not dictated by my timeline. My journey is not dictated by yours. Wise sages may say it like all flowers don't bloom at the same time, right? But however you say it, the wisdom and the principle is ancient and it's eternal, meaning it's just what it is. It's just the way that it is. Everybody has their own journey, therefore their own timing. Now, why that feels so foreign to us a lot of times is because the society that we live in today is not built for that. By and large, right? Now you see how this is being changed in a lot of different ways in a lot of different areas, technology being one of them, right? Technology comes along, allows you to do things from anywhere where you don't have to be in a specific place. Therefore, taking the limitation of having to geographically be somewhere in order to do something, right? But what does that actually mean, right? That means that the true nature of how things should be is starting to come back into play so that you are no longer limited, right? I'm an IT consultant. I'm constantly bombarded by, job postings that come to my inbox about remote jobs all the time. And they always, from 6-figure jobs all the way down to basic customer service. They're always coming to my inbox like, hey, we're looking for somebody and you don't have to go anywhere. You can do this remotely. Or you can do this remotely for X amount of time and then you got to move over here to where we are, right? It's so much different things. But my point is just this, that when you understand that, why did that even become a thing again? Why do you think that became a thing again? And I say again because there's for a reason for that. But why do you think that even became a thing again? It's because it is part of your nature to want fulfillment, to want to live your life as well as provide for your family, provide for the people who you need to provide for, and, including but not limited to yourself, right? Without the limitation of geographical area, right? I shouldn't be limited to where I am for opportunities. You see, this is a fundamental right. And it's been there for a long time now, but, I'm just saying as far as, but technology has enabled that, right? In support of life. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you should just be in the house all day, every day, because you don't have to commute to work? No, that's not what that means. It means that when you go out it's no longer to go to work. You can work from home, right? So you can wake up, you don't have to commute, you can get ready, go to work from home. And then once you're finished working, now you can go out and enjoy life on your terms wherever you are, including traveling to other places. You know what I mean? And working from there, not just from home, quote unquote, right? So these are just some of the thoughts. And so we have to be careful, because when we start utilizing these thoughts, they block us from understanding things at a different level, okay? Because you can understand this from a lot of different angles, but a lot of times what we do is we stop ourselves wherever we feel comfortable, or wherever it may be agreeing with how we feel at the moment, right? And it's so interesting to see, because a lot of times when I witness stuff like that, and I'm seeing this, and then I see that it changes over time, you know, and I pay attention, you know, that's part of my practice, is being aware and paying attention. And I listen to people, I listen to myself, you know. So when I have that feeling, and I feel, it feels like it's about that time for some type of change, then I know that, you know, that's what it is. It's time for some type of change, right? I know that. And so that's what I expect, you know, or I become open. I make myself open to whatever that change may be, right? To allow it to come in. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from an outside force. It could be coming from inside out, right? It may be a time for change in how I think and how I approach certain problems, and so on and so forth, okay? So the goal, the key to what I'm saying and what I want you to take from this podcast is this: if you truly want to be a multi-dimensional being, then you cannot think one-dimensionally. You can't think one-dimensionally. You have to open your mind to other perspectives in order to be truly multi-dimensional. Okay? And with that, this is the Intelligent Gentleman, and thank you for listening to my podcast. Please, if you support me, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to donate. You can do either or, and I appreciate it. You can find that on my Anchor page, where I do my podcast, and I'm just so grateful to be able to share this stuff with you all, and that I have that ability. It still amazes me. You know, when I go back and I look at, and I do this mentally, I look back, I retrospect, and I look back at certain periods of my life and how I've always wanted to be the person that when a person needs help, when a person has questions or they need advice or whatever the case may be, I've always been that person. And it led me to being that person for my friends and my family and so on and so forth. You know? I mean, and in some very deep situations. And I mean, I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. That to me is immeasurably priceless. You know? So again, thank you, and I'll see y'all on the next podcast. Take care. Peace.